Welcome to Fairfax Docks, Yellowstone National Park, a place where the earth breathes, bleeds heat, and lies on top of a massive supervolcano. On March 1, 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant established the park. It covers 2.2 million acres across Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. Beneath the park's beauty, however, lies a ticking time bomb, the Yellowstone caldera. This supervolcano is overdue for eruption, and when it erupts, it will be an extinction-level event. The last eruption was 640,000 years ago, making it 40,000 years overdue. Over 300 people have died in the park since it became a national park, not from volcanic eruptions, but from the dangers hidden within. Deaths from thermal features, wildlife attacks, falls, and even disappearances are common. Since 1872, 52 people have vanished without a trace, their fates forever a mystery. As winter descends, Yellowstone transforms into a dangerous world of hidden geothermal pools, and the threat is more deadly than ever. Every winter, visitors are drawn to the park's beauty, only to be consumed by its hidden horrors. December 22nd, 2023, 9:47 a.m. Shoshone Geyser Basin, Yellowstone Backcountry. Marcus Chen, age 36, was an experienced backcountry skier from Seattle, Washington. He'd been skiing for 20 years, including multiple winter expeditions in the Cascades, the Rockies, and even Norway's Jotunheimen Mountains. He was fit, skilled, and well-equipped. For his Christmas vacation, Marcus had planned a solo backcountry ski tour through Yellowstone's Shoshone Geyser Basin, a remote thermal area accessible only by skiing or snowshoeing, 8 miles from the nearest trailhead at Lone Star Geyser. The Shoshone Basin contains over 100 thermal features: geysers, hot springs, fumaroles scattered across a beautiful meadow surrounded by a lodgepole pine forest. In summer, it's accessible but rarely visited. In winter, it's almost completely isolated, perfect for someone seeking solitude. Marcus had notified park rangers of his route required for winter backcountry travel, carried a satellite GPS beacon, and packed survival gear: emergency bivouac, fire starter, extra food, first aid kit, avalanche beacon, and a satellite communicator. He was prepared for everything, except what actually happened. Sound of skiing continues. Then, a subtle change. The snow sounds different, hollow. The skis make a slight crunching noise. At approximately 10:34 a.m., Marcus was skiing across what appeared to be a flat, snow-covered meadow in the heart of Shoshone Basin. He'd already passed several visible thermal features, small geysers steaming in the cold air, their heat melting the surrounding snow in perfect circles. He'd stayed well clear of them, giving each feature a wide berth. But what he didn't see, what no one could see, was the thermal pool hidden beneath 3 feet of accumulated snow. The pool was approximately 15 feet in diameter, with water temperature measured later at 198 degrees F, just below boiling. The heat from the pool had partially melted the overlying snow, creating a thin crust barely an inch thick. But fresh snowfall the night before had covered the crust, making it indistinguishable from solid ground. Marcus skied directly over it. For half a second, nothing happened. His skis distributed his weight across the surface, and then the crust collapsed. Sound of snow suddenly giving way. A sharp crack. A man's scream cut short as he plunges downward. Splash. Steam hissing. Agonized screaming. Marcus fell through. His skis, poles, and pack were ripped away as he plummeted into near-boiling water. 10:34 a.m. Immediate aftermath. Marcus would later describe the experience in testimony to park rangers and medical professionals as the worst pain imaginable, like being thrown into a pot of boiling acid. The thermal pool's water wasn't just hot. It was highly acidic, pH approximately 3.5, comparable to orange juice. But at 198 degrees F, and contained dissolved minerals including sulfur, arsenic, and silica. Marcus' initial immersion lasted approximately 4 seconds before his survival instincts kicked in. He thrashed, found the pool's edge beneath the snow, and pulled himself out using a combination of adrenaline, terror, and sheer willpower. He collapsed onto the snow 20 feet from the pool, gasping, screaming, his entire body on fire with pain. His injuries: second-degree burns covering approximately 40% of his body, legs, hands, lower torso anywhere not protected by his heavy winter ski clothing. Third-degree burns on both hands. He'd used them to push off the pool's edge. Severe chemical burns from the acidic water. Hypothermia risk. His clothing was soaked, and the temperature was 12 F. Marcus knew he was going to die. He was 8 miles from the nearest road. No cell service. The satellite communicator was in his pack, which was now sinking into the thermal pool. But he did have one thing: his emergency bivouac sack, stored in a pocket, not the pack. With burned hands that barely functioned, Marcus managed to activate his personal locator beacon, PLB, a small device worn on his belt that sends an SOS signal to search and rescue satellites. Then he crawled into the bivouac sack, zipped it closed, and waited, shivering, screaming, praying, and feeling something else, something wrong. Ominous music began softly, because even through the pain, even through the shock and hypothermia and terror, Marcus could feel the heat, not from his burns. That was a different sensation, sharp, stabbing, like being flayed alive. This heat was inside him, deep inside, in his chest, in his bones, like the thermal pool had injected something into him, something that was still there, still hot, still burning. December 22nd, 2023, 2:17 p.m. Search and rescue. A Yellowstone National Park helicopter located Marcus' PLB signal and dispatched a search and rescue team via Snowmobile. They reached him at 2:17 p.m., 3 hours and 43 minutes after his fall. The rescue team expected to find him dead. Hypothermia alone should have killed him at those temperatures, combined with his injuries and the delay. But Marcus was alive, barely conscious, delirious, but alive and burning hot. The lead rescuer, Ranger Sarah Mitchell, 42, 15 years experience, would later report something disturbing in her official incident log. Subject's body temperature measured at 104.7 degrees F via temporal scanner. This reading was initially assumed to be equipment error, as hypothermia was expected given environmental conditions and wet clothing. However, multiple measurements confirmed elevated core temperature. Subject was conscious but incoherent, repeatedly stating, "It's inside me and it won't stop burning." Subject showed signs of extreme agitation and attempted to remove his remaining clothing despite freezing temperature. Forcible restraint was required during helicopter evacuation. Marcus was airlifted to Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center in Idaho Falls, the nearest hospital equipped to handle severe burn cases, and admitted to the ICU. December 22nd, 25th, 2023. Hospital treatment and anomalies. Over the next 3 days, medical staff treated Marcus's burns using standard protocols: wound debridement, antibiotic treatment, pain management, IV fluids, and skin grafting preparation. But several aspects of his case disturbed the treating physicians. 1. Core temperature elevation. Marcus' body temperature remained elevated, 101, 103 degrees F, despite aggressive cooling measures. He wasn't feverish from infection, blood cultures were negative. He was just hot. His skin radiated heat. 2. Accelerated burn healing. By December 24th, just 2 days post-injury, his second-degree burns showed healing progress that should take 7-10 days. His third-degree burns, which should require weeks of treatment, were beginning to show granulation tissue, early healing sign. Doctors were baffled. 3. Behavioral changes. Marcus became increasingly agitated, especially at night. He reported hearing voices speaking in a language he didn't understand, feeling pulled toward heat sources, the hospital radiator, heating vents, intense dreams of going underground and joining them, compulsive desire to return to Yellowstone. Psychiatric evaluation found him oriented and coherent, ruling out delirium or psychosis. Whatever he was experiencing, he genuinely believed it. 4. Physical anomaly. On December 25th, Christmas morning, a nurse noticed something impossible. Marcus' left palm, which had suffered third-degree burns requiring eventual skin grafting, showed faint marks, not random scarring, but patterns, symbols, like someone had carved or branded them into his skin from the inside. The attending physician, Dr. Rebecca Hayes, photographed the marks and consulted a dermatology specialist. Neither could explain them. The symbols didn't match any known skin condition, scarring pattern, or cultural tattoo tradition. Dr. Hayes described them in her medical notes as geometrically precise patterns, approximately 2-3 meters wide, raised slightly above the surrounding tissue, appearing to glow faintly when viewed in low light, possibly due to increased blood flow or temperature differential. When asked, Marcus said he didn't know where they came from, but he knew what they meant. "They're showing me the way down." December 26, 2023. Against medical advice discharge. On December 26th, against strong medical advice, and with his burns only partially healed, Marcus Chen checked himself out of the hospital. He told doctors he felt called to return to Yellowstone, that he needed to finish what started, that they were waiting. Hospital staff tried to convince him to stay. His family, contacted by the hospital, begged him to come home to Seattle. Marcus refused. He rented a car, using a credit card despite having severe burns on his hands that made driving excruciating, drove north and entered Yellowstone National Park via the north entrance at Gardner, Montana. Park rangers, alerted by the hospital, attempted to locate him. But Yellowstone is 2.2 million acres, and Marcus knew exactly where he was going. December 27th, 2023. Discovery. At 7:42 a.m. on December 27th, a park ranger conducting a routine patrol near Shoshone Geyser Basin, checking the area following Marcus's accident 5 days earlier, made a disturbing discovery. Fresh ski tracks leading directly to the thermal pool where Marcus had fallen. The tracks came from the Lone Star Geyser trailhead, meaning someone had skied 8 miles through the backcountry in the middle of winter. The tracks ended at the pool's edge. There were no tracks leading away. The ranger approached cautiously, steam from the thermal pool obscuring visibility, and found Marcus Chen's abandoned rental car keys, wallet, and phone placed carefully on a flat rock beside the pool. No sign of Marcus. The pool's surface was smooth, undisturbed, steaming in the freezing air. But when the ranger used a thermal camera to scan the pool's temperature profile, she saw something impossible. A heat signature, human-shaped, approximately 6 feet below the surface. Not floating, not moving, just there, suspended in 198-degree F acidic water that should dissolve human tissue in minutes. The ranger called for backup immediately. Investigation and recovery attempts. Yellowstone National Park deployed their dive-certified search and rescue team, but the thermal pool's conditions made recovery impossible. Water temperature, 198-degree F, wetsuit maximum rating, 90-degree FY. Extreme acidity, PR3.5, would damage equipment and pose severe risk. Unknown depth. The pool's actual depth exceeded their equipment's capabilities. Thermal instability. The pool's floor was unstable volcanic mud. Attempts to use remote-operated cameras failed. The acidic water corroded electronics within minutes. The official conclusion. Marcus Chen had committed suicide by entering the thermal pool, and his body dissolved completely within 24 hours, consistent with known thermal pool fatality. Case closed. Except present day. The aftermath. Park rangers who patrol Shoshone Geyser Basin report disturbing phenomena near the pool where Marcus fell. Visual anomalies. Multiple rangers have reported seeing a figure standing near the pool at dawn, male, average height, wearing ski clothing. The figure is visible for 10-20 seconds before vanishing. When photographed, the figure appears as a heat distortion, like looking through rising air above hot pavement. Thermal anomalies. The pool's temperature has increased since Marcus's disappearance. It now measures 212 degrees F, boiling point of water at Yellowstone's elevation, 14 degrees hotter than before his accident. And the pool's geyser activity has changed. It now erupts every 47 minutes. It was previously dormant. Each eruption lasts exactly 3 minutes and 36 seconds. The exact duration Marcus was submerged during his initial fall. Audio phenomena. Hikers passing the basin report hearing sounds. A man's voice calling for help in English. The same voice speaking in an unknown language, possibly the voices Marcus reported hearing in the hospital. Bubbling, hissing sounds from pools that are normally quiet. Physical evidence. In March 2024, a geologist studying Shoshone Basin discovered something disturbing on the rocks surrounding Marcus's pool. Symbols, carved or burned into the stone. The same geometric patterns that appeared on Marcus' hand in the hospital. But these symbols were massive, each 1-3 feet wide, arranged in a perfect circle around the pool. Carbon dating of the thermal deposits covering the symbols indicated they were created between December 26-27, 2023, the same time frame as Marcus's disappearance. No explanation has been provided for how the symbols appeared, who created them, or what they mean. Marcus' final social media post. On December 26, 2023, at 11:47 p.m., just hours before his disappearance, Marcus posted one final message to his Instagram account, at @MarcusGuestWorld, 4 tank followers. The post contained a single photo. The thermal pool where he'd fallen, photographed at night, steam rising, the pool glowing faintly orange from internal heat. Caption read, "They say if you listen to the earth long enough, it starts to speak. I fell in, and now I understand. The volcano isn't dormant. It's dreaming, and it wants to wake up. I'm going back, not to die, but to answer. Some calls can't be ignored. If you're reading this, stay away from Yellowstone. Or better yet, come closer. Listen. You'll hear them too." The post has been viewed over 230 million times. And in the comments, dozens of accounts created on December 27th, 2023, with no followers, no profile pictures, no history, left the same message. Welcome home. Every comment's location tag, Shoshone Geyser Basin, Yellowstone National Park. Marcus' family statement. Marcus' mother, Linda Chen, issued a statement through the family attorney in January 2024. Our family is devastated by Marcus' loss. He was an experienced outdoorsman who loved Yellowstone. We believe his accident and subsequent trauma affected his mental state, leading to his tragic decision. We urge Yellowstone National Park to improve winter backcountry safety measures and to better mark thermal features that are hidden by snow. No family should have to experience what we have. But privately, Linda told reporters something different. In an off-the-record interview with a Seattle journalist, she said, "The hospital showed us the symbols on his hand, and I've seen those symbols before. My grandmother, Marcus' great-grandmother, was Shoshone. She told stories about the fire spirits that live beneath the hot springs, spirits that would call to people, invite them down, promise them heat and life eternal. Most tribes avoided the thermal areas because of those spirits. They knew. They always knew. Marcus wasn't mentally ill. He was chosen." And he answered, "I just wish he hadn't." December 24th, 2022, 1:34 p.m. Old Faithful area, Yellowstone National Park. The Patterson family: David, 41st, Jennifer, 39, Emma, 12, and Sophie, 7, had driven from their home in Boise, Idaho, to spend Christmas at Yellowstone. It was a bucket list trip they'd been planning for 2 years, a winter wonderland Christmas vacation at America's first national park. They'd booked 3 nights at the Old Faithful Snow Lodge, one of only 2 lodges open in winter, purchased a guided snowmobile tour for Christmas Eve afternoon, and planned to attend Christmas Day services at the historic chapel before watching Old Faithful erupt in the snow. Perfect family memories. The snowmobile tour was operated by Yellowstone Wilderness Tours, a licensed concessionaire with an impeccable safety record. Their guide, Jake Morrison, age 29, 7 years guiding experience, had led over 500 winter tours without incident. The tour group included the Patterson family, 4 people, 2 snowmobiles, an elderly couple from Minnesota, 2 people, 1 snowmobile, 3 college friends from Montana, 3 people, 2 snowmobiles. Total, 9 people, 5 snowmobiles, plus Jake's guide machine. The planned route: Old Faithful area, Biscuit Basin. 3 miles north, viewing thermal features, return to Old Faithful. Total trip time: 2.5 hours. Easy, safe, family friendly. Weather conditions were perfect. Clear skies, temperature 8° F, minimal wind, excellent visibility. Nothing could go wrong. Ominous music begins softly. At 2:17 p.m., the group stopped at Biscuit Basin, a collection of hot springs, geysers, and thermal pools famous for their vibrant colors: blues, greens, oranges, created by thermophilic bacteria living in the extreme heat. In summer, Biscuit Basin has boardwalks allowing safe viewing. In winter, the boardwalks are buried under 3-4 feet of snow, and visitors must stay on marked trails or risk falling through thin snow crust into boiling water. Jake gathered the group for his standard safety briefing. "Okay, folks, welcome to Biscuit Basin. Beautiful, right? But remember the rules. Stay together. Do not approach any steaming areas. Do not step off the packed snow trail. These thermal features are 180 to 200 degrees. If you fall in, you die. It's that simple. Keep your kids close. We'll spend 15 minutes here, take photos, then head back for hot chocolate at Old Faithful." Everyone nodded. Everyone understood. Sophie Patterson, age 7, was particularly excited. She'd been learning about Yellowstone in school, had watched documentaries, had told all her friends she was spending Christmas at the volcano park. She was wearing a bright pink snowsuit, easy to spot, a matching pink helmet, and carried a disposable camera her grandparents had given her to document the trip. Jennifer held Sophie's hand as they walked carefully along the packed trail, pointing out the various thermal features. "Look, sweetie, that one's called Sapphire Pool. See how blue it is? That's because of special bacteria that love hot water. And that steaming one over there? That's Black Opal Pool. Isn't it beautiful?" Sophie was transfixed. She raised her camera, taking photo after photo, her breath visible in the frigid air. David was photographing Emma near a large geyser cone. The elderly couple was chatting with Jake. The college friends were taking selfies. Everything was fine. At 2:29 p.m., Jennifer released Sophie's hand for just a moment to adjust her own camera settings. "Stay right here, baby. Don't move." "Okay, Mommy." Jennifer turned, focused her camera on a particularly vibrant thermal pool, and took 3 photos. When she turned back, Sophie was gone. Sound of wind suddenly picking up. A mother's voice, still calm: "Sophie. Sophie, where'd you go?" "Honey." Jennifer's first reaction was mild annoyance, not panic. Sophie had probably wandered 5 feet away to look at something interesting. "Sophie, stay where I can see you." No response. "Sophie." Now, panic. Jennifer spun in a circle, scanning the area. The packed trail was clear. She could see the entire group. Sophie wasn't there. David heard the fear in Jennifer's voice and rushed over. "What's wrong?" "Sophie, "I can't find Sophie. She was right here." Jake, the guide, immediately initiated an emergency protocol. He gathered the group, did a head count. 9 people present. Sophie Patterson missing. Jake radioed Yellowstone Dispatch immediately. "This is Wilderness Tour 47. I have a missing child. Female, age 7, pink snowsuit, last seen Biscuit Basin at approximately 14:29 hours. Initiating immediate search. Request additional support." Jake organized the group into a search line, moving slowly outward from Sophie's last known position, calling her name, scanning the snow for any sign of tracks. The problem: the area around Biscuit Basin is a maze of thermal features, many hidden beneath snow. And Sophie weighed only 52 pounds, light enough that she might not break through crust that would support an adult, but could still be walking on dangerously thin snow above boiling water. After 15 minutes of searching, they found something. Small footprints, child-sized, leading away from the packed trail. The prints headed directly toward a cluster of thermal features known as the Mustard Spring Complex, an area of small hot springs and fumaroles, steam vents partially obscured by fresh snowfall. Jake's heart sank. Those features were some of the most dangerous in the basin, small, unmarked, with unpredictable water flow and thin surface crust. He followed the footprints carefully, the group behind him, everyone calling Sophie's name. The tracks were clear. Sophie had walked in a perfectly straight line, no meandering, no stopping to look around, just walking purposefully toward the steam. And then the tracks ended at the edge of a small thermal pool, approximately 8 feet in diameter, with milky turquoise water gently steaming in the cold air. The tracks stopped 1 foot from the water's edge, and there were no tracks leading away. Sound of a mother screaming, a father shouting, "No, no, no, no," chaos. Emergency response. Yellowstone National Park deployed every available resource. Law enforcement rangers, search and rescue teams, helicopter with thermal imaging, dive-certified rescue technicians, K9 units. David Patterson stood at the pool's edge, screaming his daughter's name, trying to wade in, held back by 3 rangers. "She's in there. My baby's in there. Get her out. Please get her out." But they couldn't. The thermal pool, later identified as unnamed feature TF447, was measured at water temperature 192 degree F, PA level 2.1, extremely acidic, comparable to battery acid. Depth unknown. Probing indicated at least 20 feet, possibly connecting to deeper geothermal channels. Bottom composition: unstable volcanic mud mixed with silica deposits. If Sophie had fallen in, she was dead within seconds, and her body would dissolve completely within 24 hours. But there was a problem. The thermal pool showed no disturbance. When someone or something falls into water, it creates ripples, splashing, displaced liquid. The pool's surface should show evidence of recent disturbance. This pool was perfectly still, smooth as glass, as if nothing had touched it. And there was something else. The thermal imaging helicopter scanning the area from above detected anomalous heat signatures in 3 locations. The pool where Sophie's tracks ended, a fumarole, steam vent, 200 feet to the northeast, Old Faithful geyser, 1.5 miles away. All 3 signatures showed human-shaped heat patterns, child-sized, but not on the surface. Underground. Investigation and theories. Over the next 48 hours, Yellowstone authorities developed several theories about Sophie Patterson's disappearance. Theory 1. Thermal pool drowning. Official conclusion: Sophie fell into the pool. Her body dissolved rapidly in the acidic water, and the pool's surface had time to settle before searchers arrived, though this timeline was questioned, as only 2-3 minutes elapsed. Theory 2. Abduction. Sophie was taken by an unknown person who carried her away, explaining the lack of footprints. But this theory was dismissed because the search perimeter was established within 5 minutes. Thermal imaging showed no adult-size heat signatures fleeing the area. K9 units detected no human scent trail leading away from the pool. Theory 3. Wildlife attack. Sophie was killed and carried off by a predator, wolf, mountain lion, bear. But this was dismissed because no blood, drag marks, or signs of struggle. No animal tracks in the area. Winter predators typically avoid thermal areas. Too exposed, no cover. The official conclusion: accidental drowning in thermal feature. Body unrecoverable due to acidic dissolution. But some investigators privately, off the record, suggested a fourth theory. Theory 4. Sophie walked into the geothermal system voluntarily. The video evidence. On December 27, 2022, investigators reviewing footage from Jennifer Patterson's camera made a disturbing discovery. Jennifer had taken 3 photos of a thermal pool at 2:28 p.m., 1 minute before Sophie disappeared. The photos appeared normal, vibrant blue water, steam, beautiful lighting. But when investigators examined the EXIF data and enhanced the images, they saw something in the third photo. In the steam rising from the pool, barely visible, a pattern, a face, child-sized, female, smiling. The investigators dismissed it as pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces in random patterns, like seeing shapes in clouds. But then they found Sophie's disposable camera. It was discovered 30 feet from the pool, partially buried in snow, undamaged. When the film was developed, it contained 27 photos. Photos 124. Normal vacation shots, family, landscapes, thermal features. Photo 25. Taken at 2:27 p.m. shows Jennifer and David in the background, thermal features in the foreground, normal composition. Photo 26. Taken at 2:28 p.m. shows a thermal pool, steam rising, nothing unusual. Photo 27. Taken at 2:29 p.m. Photo 27 was the last image on the roll. Timestamp: 2:29, 14 p.m., approximately 30 seconds before Sophie vanished. The photo showed the thermal pool where Sophie's tracks ended. But the angle was wrong. The photo was taken from inside the steam, approximately 6 feet above the water's surface, as if Sophie had been floating or suspended in mid-air when she took it. And in the photo, visible in the steam surrounding the camera lens, faces, dozens of them, children's faces, different ages, different ethnicities, different eras of clothing, visible in the wisps of steam, all smiling, all beckoning, and in the center, clearer than the others, a girl, 7 years old, long dark hair, wearing pioneer-era clothing, 1800s, reaching toward the camera, her hand extended, inviting. The photo was logged as evidence but never released to the public. The Patterson family aftermath. David and Jennifer Patterson divorced in August 2023. The trauma of Sophie's disappearance destroyed their marriage. Emma Patterson, age 12, at the time of her sister's disappearance, required intensive therapy for PTSD and survivor's guilt. In a therapy session, later disclosed to authorities with parental permission, Emma revealed something she'd never told her parents. On Christmas Eve morning, hours before the Snowmobile tour, Sophie had woken Emma up, excited, saying, "Emma, I had the best dream. There were kids playing in the hot springs and they said I could come play with them. They said Yellowstone is magic, and if you go into the water, you become part of the park forever. Isn't that cool?" Emma had dismissed it as just a dream. Kids have vivid imaginations. But now she wondered, had Sophie's dream been something else? A call, an invitation, present day, the ongoing mystery. The thermal pool where Sophie disappeared has been cordoned off and marked with warning signs, but rangers report disturbing activity in the area. Visual phenomena. Multiple visitors have photographed anomalies in the steam rising from the pool. Child-shaped figures, Faces appearing and disappearing. What appears to be a small hand waving from within the steam. Audio phenomena. Hikers passing Biscuit Basin report hearing. A child laughing. Female, young. Children playing, splashing, as if in a pool, but no children are present. A girl's voice calling, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm okay. I'm playing with my new friends." Thermal anomalies. The pool's temperature has fluctuated since Sophie's disappearance. It now spikes to exactly 98.6 degrees human body temperature for exactly 7 minutes every day at 2:29 p.m., the time Sophie vanished. During those 7 minutes, the pool's water turns from milky turquoise to deep red. No scientific explanation has been provided. Sophie's memorial. On December 24, 2023, 1 year after Sophie's disappearance, David and Jennifer Patterson, still divorced but united in grief, held a memorial service at Old Faithful Snowmobile. They placed a small pink teddy bear at the edge of the thermal pool where Sophie's tracks ended, along with a handwritten note. "Sophie, our beautiful girl, we love you. We miss you. We hope you're at peace. Merry Christmas, baby. Love, Mom and Dad." The teddy bear and note were left overnight. When rangers checked the site the next morning, December 25th, they found the note was gone. The teddy bear remained, but the teddy bear was now sitting 15 feet from where it was placed on the opposite side of the thermal pool. No footprints led to it. No wind could have moved it. It was too heavy, and the weather had been calm overnight. And attached to the teddy bear's paw with a piece of grass, a small wildflower, fresh, still damp. The species, Phacelia thermalis, a rare flower that grows only near Yellowstone's thermal features, blooming in December, in 15-degree F weather chart. Biologically impossible, but there it was. The geothermal theory. Dr. Michael Reeves, a geologist studying Yellowstone's hydrothermal system, proposed a controversial theory in a 2024 research paper that was never officially published but circulated among park rangers and scientists. Yellowstone's geothermal network is far more complex than previously understood. The thermal pools, geysers, and hot springs are not isolated features. They're all connected through an intricate underground plumbing system of channels, caverns, and superheated waterways extending hundreds of feet below the surface. Recent seismic imaging suggests the existence of large, water-filled caverns within the geothermal system, spaces where temperatures range from 9110 degrees F, warm but not deadly, and where oxygenated water circulates from surface infiltration. Theoretically, if someone fell into certain thermal features and avoided the hottest zones, they could be transported through the system into these caverns. Survival would be unlikely but not impossible. What troubles me are the thermal signatures detected by park helicopters, human-shaped heat patterns appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, always underground, always moving along, known geothermal flow path. I don't have an explanation, but I believe something is living or existing within Yellowstone's geothermal network, and I believe Sophie Patterson might have joined it. Dr. Reeves was asked to leave the Yellowstone research program in June 2024 after refusing to retract his theory. And for Patterson's final statement, in December 24, on the 2-year anniversary of Sophie's disappearance, Jennifer Patterson gave an interview to a regional news station. Her final words were, "People ask me if I have closure. I don't. I never will. Because every time I see steam rising from the ground, every time I see a hot spring, every time I hear about Yellowstone, I wonder if Sophie is still there. Not dead, but changed, transformed, part of something we don't understand." That photo from her camera, the one with all the children's faces in the steam, haunts me, because Sophie's face wasn't among them. Not yet. Like she was being shown her future, being invited to join. I tell myself she died instantly, that she didn't suffer. But deep down, I think she's still there, and I think she's happy. As horrible as that sounds, I think answered something calling to her, something ancient, something that's been waiting beneath Yellowstone for thousands of years. And I think it's still calling to other children, other families, every winter, every Christmas. So if you're planning to visit Yellowstone with your kids, please, please, don't let them wander. Don't let them go near the thermal features. And if they tell you they dreamed about children playing in hot springs, leave the tree immediately. Don't ask questions. Just leave. Because Yellowstone doesn't just take people, it transforms them. And sometimes they never want to leave. Silence. Then the sound of children laughing, echoing, distorted as if coming from underwater or from very far away. A girl's voice, faint but joyful. "Mommy, I'm okay. I have so many friends here. We play in the warm water every day. It's like a giant bathtub that never gets cold. Come join us. It's Christmas forever down here." The laughter fades, steam hisses, silence. December 28th, 2023, 6:47 a.m. Lamar Valley, Yellowstone National Park. Lamar Valley, nicknamed America's Serengeti, is Yellowstone's premier wildlife viewing location. The expansive valley, surrounded by mountains and bisected by the Lamar River, hosts massive herds of bison, elk, pronghorn, and wolves. In winter, the wildlife concentrates in the valley to access food and shelter, creating spectacular viewing opportunities. For wildlife photographers, Lamar Valley in winter is paradise. Brian Holloway, age 43, was a professional wildlife photographer from Denver, Colorado, with a successful career spanning 18 years. His work had been featured in National Geographic, Outdoor Photographer, and Smithsonian Magazine. He specialized in winter wildlife photography. The harsh conditions and dramatic lighting created images that were both beautiful and powerful. For December 2023, Brian had rented a small cabin near the park's northeast entrance in Silver Gate, Montana, one of the few areas accessible in winter. Planning to spend 2 weeks photographing Yellowstone's winter wildlife. His equipment was professional grade. Canon EOS R5 camera body, $3,900. Canon RF 100-500 mm telephoto lens, $2,700. Gitso tripod, FLIR thermal imaging camera, $4,500. Plus backup bodies, multiple lenses, and a ruggedized laptop for editing. But it was the thermal camera that would capture something impossible. 6:47 a.m. The setup. Brian had positioned himself in Lamar Valley before dawn, hoping to capture elk and bison during the golden hour, the period just after sunrise when the light is soft and warm. Temperature, 22 degree F. Wind chill, 35 degree F. Clear skies. Perfect conditions. He set up his tripod, mounted his camera, and began scanning the valley through his telephoto lens. Approximately 400 yards away, a herd of elk grazed near the frozen Lamar River. A massive bull elk, likely 700 pounds, with a 6X antler configuration, stood watch at the herd's edge. Brian started shooting. The light was perfect. The elk were cooperative. This was exactly what he'd come for. At 7:14 a.m., Brian switched to his thermal imaging camera. Thermal cameras detect infrared radiation, heat, and create images based on temperature differences. They're useful for wildlife photography because they can spot animals hidden by vegetation, show behavior patterns, and create striking false color images. Brian aimed the thermal camera at the elk herd, curious to see how their body heat contrasted with the frozen landscape. The thermal display showed elk, bright yellow-red, warm-blooded, approximately 101 degree F body temperature. Ground, deep blue-purple, extremely cold. River, dark blue, frozen but slightly warmer than ambient air. Trees, medium blue, absorbing some daytime heat. Normal. Expected. But then Brian panned the camera slightly to the left, scanning a cluster of thermal features, steam vents and small hot springs, approximately 200 yards from the elk, and saw something that shouldn't exist. Ominous music begins. Heat signatures, human-shaped, 5 of them, standing in a line, perfectly still, just watching the elk. Brian lowered the thermal camera and looked with his naked eyes. Nothing there, just steam rising from the thermal features. He raised the thermal camera again. The 5 figures were still visible. Human height, 5-6 feet tall. Clearly defined head, torso, arms, legs. Standing upright. Their body temperature registered as 105 degree F, slightly elevated but within human range. But the strangest part, they weren't standing on the ground. They were standing in the steam, approximately 3-4 feet above the ground surface, as if floating or suspended in the rising thermal vapor. Brian's hand started shaking. This was impossible. He grabbed his regular camera, switched to his telephoto lens, and photographed the area where the thermal signatures appeared. The photos showed steam, grass to grass, snow, God-eye, no people. He switched back to thermal. The 5 figures remained, and now they were moving, walking, slowly, deliberately, toward the elk herd. 7:23 a.m. The elk reaction. Brian watched through his thermal camera as the 5 heat signatures approached the elk, and the elk reacted. The massive bull elk raised his head, ears forward, staring directly at the approaching figures, which were still invisible to normal sight. The bull bugled, a high-pitched, echoing call that sounded like a cross between a scream and a whistle. An alarm call. The entire herd bolted. 40 elk fled in panic, running across the frozen valley, away from the thermal features, away from the invisible figures that only thermal imaging could detect. Within seconds, the valley was empty except for the 5 figures, who stopped moving and turned directly toward Brian. All 5, simultaneously, as if they knew he was watching, through a camera lens, from 200 yards away. Brian felt a wave of primal terror wash over him. He lowered the thermal camera, grabbed his regular camera, and photographed the figure's location with his telephoto lens. The resulting photo showed empty valley, steam detain, Hanbara, nothing else. But when he checked the thermal camera's recording, he'd been recording video the entire time. The 5 figures were clearly visible, and they were walking toward him, slowly, steadily, gliding across the snow without leaving footprints. Brian made a decision. Leave. Immediately. He packed his equipment with shaking hands, threw everything in his truck, and drove back to his cabin. His heart was racing. His mind was trying to rationalize what he'd seen. Equipment malfunction, thermal imaging artifact, temperature inversion creating false readings, heat mirage, something. Anything logical, but he knew what he'd seen, and he had video proof. December 28th, 30th, analysis and escalation. Back at his cabin, Brian spent the next 2 days analyzing the thermal footage frame by frame. The video is 37 minutes long, and it was disturbing. Minute 0:15, normal thermal imaging of elk herd. Minute 16, 5 human-shaped heat signatures appear near thermal features. Minute 17:25, figures remain stationary, then begin moving toward elk. Minute 26, elk herd flees. Minutes 27:37, figures turned toward Brian's position and walked directly toward the camera. By the end of the video, the figures are approximately 50 feet from Brian's location before he stopped recording and fled. But several details made the footage even more disturbing. 1. Temperature readings. The figure's body temperatures fluctuated between 103 and 107 degrees F. Slightly elevated, but not impossible for living humans in extreme cold. The body generates extra heat to compensate. But the pattern was wrong. Human body temperature doesn't fluctuate rapidly. These figures' temperatures spiked and dropped in rhythmic patterns, almost like breathing. 2. Movement patterns. The figures move smoothly across terrain, snow, ice, rocks, frozen ground, without deviation. No stumbling, no adjusting for obstacles. They were floating rather than walking. 3. Formation. The 5 figures maintained perfect spacing throughout the video, always the same distance apart, always in the same configuration, like they were connected or controlled by a single intelligence. 4. Final frame. In the video's last frame, before Brian stopped recording and fled, one of the figures is approximately 50 feet from the camera position, and it raises its arm, pointing directly at the camera, as if acknowledging Brian's presence. Brian exported the footage, backed it up to multiple hard drives, and contacted several colleagues, professional wildlife photographers, and thermal imaging specialists, asking for their analysis. Their responses ranged from skeptical, thermal cameras can produce artifacts under certain atmospheric conditions, to disturbed, I've been using thermal imaging for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. One thermal imaging specialist, Dr. Chen from Colorado State University, provided technical analysis. The heat signatures in your footage are consistent with living organisms. The temperature readings, the thermal distribution patterns, and the infrared emissions all match biological sources. However, the lack of corresponding visible light images is troubling. If these are humans, they should be visible to normal cameras. If they're animals, the shape is wrong. If they're thermal phenomena, steam patterns, heat convection, the movement and behavior are too complex. I don't have an explanation. But Dr. Chen added something else in a private email. Brian, off the record, I've consulted on several projects involving thermal imaging at Yellowstone. And this isn't the first time these signatures have been captured. Park Service has at least 3 other videos showing similar phenomena near thermal features. They've never released them publicly. They classify them as unexplained thermal anomalies and tell our researchers not to pursue the issue. I don't know what's going on, but you've documented significant. December 30th, 2023. Return to Lamar Valley. Against his better judgment, driven by professional curiosity and the knowledge that this footage could make his career, Brian returned to Lamar Valley on December 30th. Same location, same time, 6:45 a.m., same equipment, but this time, he brought additional gear, audio recorder to capture any sounds, multiple cameras, simultaneously shooting visible light, thermal, and infrared. Emergency satellite communicator, in case something went wrong. Temperature 18 degrees F. Clear skies. Excellent visibility. Brian set up his equipment and began scanning the valley with his thermal camera. At 7:02 a.m., they appeared. Not 5 figures this time. 12. All human shape. All standing near thermal features. All glowing with that same 103.17 degree 8 signature. And they were already looking in his direction. Brian's blood ran cold. He switched to his regular camera, photographed the location. Nothing visible. Switched to thermal. The 12 figures remained. And then, they started walking toward him. All 12. Simultaneously. In perfect formation. Brian's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the camera. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to pack up and leave. But he was a professional. He'd spent 18 years capturing rare wildlife behavior. This was potentially the most significant footage he'd ever obtained. So he kept filming. The 12 figures walked across the valley. Closer, closer. 100 yards, 75 yards, 50 yards. Brian's thermal camera recorded everything. Their heat signatures, their movement patterns, their approach. At 25 yards, Brian finally saw them with his naked eyes. Not clearly, not solid, but there. Distortions in the air, like heat shimmer above hot pavement in summer. Human-shaped zones where the light bent and twisted. And inside those distortions, movement, guide, suggestion of form. Faces that weren't quite faces. Eyes that glowed faintly orange. Steam made flesh. At 10 yards, Brian heard them. Not voices, not words, but sound. A low, rumbling vibration that wasn't coming through the air. It was coming through the ground, through his boots, up his legs, into his chest, making his heart stutter. They were communicating, not with him, with each other, or with something else. At 5 yards, the figures stopped. 12 heat signatures, 12 shimmering distortions, standing in a semicircle around Brian's position. And Brian understood. They weren't threatening him. They were showing him. One of the figures raised its arm, visible as movement in the thermal vapor, and pointed, not at Brian, but past him, toward the thermal features at the valley's edge. And Brian heard it, not through his ears, but in his mind. A voice, ancient elemental speaking without words. See. Brian, despite his terror, turned and looked where the figure was pointing. A large hot spring, approximately 40 feet in diameter, steaming in the frozen morning air. And within the steam, illuminated by the rising sun, more figures, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, moving through the steam like dancers, their forms appearing and disappearing, merging with the vapor, becoming one with the thermal energy. Not ghosts, not spirits, but something else. Something that existed in the heat, in the steam, in the geothermal power itself. And Brian realized they weren't human. They had never been human. They were Yellowstone, the living consciousness of the supervolcano, manifesting through its most obvious feature, heat. Brian recorded 23 minutes of footage before his camera batteries died. The extreme cold drains batteries rapidly. The footage shows 12 heat signatures surrounding his position. The figures speaking, visible as thermal fluctuations and distortions. Brian's viewpoint turning toward the hot spring. Hundreds of additional heat signatures visible in the steam. And at the very end, just before the battery died, all the figures turning simultaneously toward the rising sun and dissolving, merging with the ambient thermal energy, becoming invisible even to thermal imaging. Brian sat in his truck for 30 minutes afterward, shaking, trying to process what he'd witnessed. When he checked his footage that evening, he found something he hadn't seen during the encounter. In one frame, for exactly 1 second, the thermal camera had captured a temperature reading from the hot spring where hundreds of figures had been moving. The water temperature, 198 Fahrenheit, near boiling. But inside the steam, where the figures had been visible, 98.6 Fahrenheit, human body temperature, as if the steam itself had been alive. Brian Holloway published a limited selection of his thermal footage, the clearest, most stable clips, to his professional website in January 2024, along with a carefully worded explanation. During a winter wildlife photography session in Yellowstone National Park, my thermal imaging equipment captured anomalous heat signatures. Near geosignatures appear to show human-shaped forms exhibiting behavior inconsistent with known wildlife or thermal phenomena. I'm releasing this footage for analysis by the scientific community. I have no explanation for what was recorded. The footage went viral. Within 48 hours, 4.7 million views across social media. Coverage by paranormal investigation, websites and YouTube channels. Analysis by skeptics, claiming equipment malfunction, editing, hoax. Interest from documentary producers and podcast hosts. But Brian also received darker attention. 1. Yellowstone National Park contacted him, requesting the full, unedited footage for analysis. When Brian provided it, the park's official response was, "Thermal imaging equipment can produce artifacts under specific atmospheric conditions present in Yellowstone's geothermal areas. We do not believe the footage represents anything anomalous." 2. 3 other wildlife photographers, who wished to remain anonymous, contacted Brian privately, sharing their own thermal footage of similar figures captured at Yellowstone, Grand Prismatic Spring, and Norris Geyser Basin. All showed the same phenomenon. Human-shaped heat signatures visible only on thermal cameras, moving near geothermal features, exhibiting intelligent behavior. 3. A geologist from the U.S. Geological Survey, which monitors Yellowstone's volcanic activity, called Brian and told him, off the record, "We've been detecting strange thermal patterns at Yellowstone for years. Heat signatures that don't match known geothermal behavior. They appear, move, and disappear in ways that suggest organization, intelligence. We don't talk about it publicly because we don't have an explanation. And frankly, it sounds insane. But between you and me, I think Yellowstone is more than just a volcano. I think it's aware. And I think what you filmed is proof." Brian Holloway no longer visits Yellowstone. In a 2024 interview with a paranormal podcast, he explained, "I photographed grizzly bears at 10 feet. I've been charged by bull elk. I've worked in -40 Fahrenheit conditions in Alaska. I'm not easily scared. But what I experienced in Lamar Valley, that changed me, because I realized we fundamentally misunderstand Yellowstone. Everyone treats it like a park, a geological curiosity, a place to see bison and geysers. But it's not. It's alive. Not metaphorically, literally. The supervolcano, the magma chamber, the thermal energy, the heat itself, has consciousness. And those figures I filmed, they're its immune system, its white blood cells. They monitor, they watch, they protect. And I think they were warning me, not threatening, warning. Showing me, this is our domain. We tolerate visitors, but don't forget what you're standing on. Don't forget what we are. May still be nice. I won't go back, not in winter, maybe not ever, because once you see them, once you know they're there, you can't unsee it. Every thermal feature, every geyser, every hot spring, you wonder if something is looking back." Dr. Michael Reeves, the geologist who proposed the controversial theory about Sophie Patterson's disappearance existing in geothermal caverns, analyzed Brian's footage and added to his research. "Holloway's thermal imaging footage provides compelling evidence for a hypothesis I've been developing. Yellowstone's geothermal system is not merely a network of heated water and steam. It's a complex, possibly self-regulating system exhibiting emergent behavior patterns consistent with primitive consciousness. The heat signatures Holloway captured show organization, purposeful movement, and response to external stimuli. The elk herd, Holloway himself. These are not random thermal plumes or atmospheric phenomena. They are structured, directed, intelligent. I propose that Yellowstone supervolcano, containing enough thermal energy to power the United States for 50,000 years, has developed a form of consciousness over its 2.1 million year existence. Not human consciousness, not animal consciousness, but something entirely different. A geological consciousness, an awareness born from heat, pressure, and unimaginable power. And if this hypothesis is correct, then every thermal feature in Yellowstone is a sensory organ. Every geyser eruption is communication. Every hot spring is a window into something ancient, alien, and utterly beyond our comprehension. The implications are staggering. Dr. Reeves' paper was rejected by every major geological journal, but his theory has gained traction among fringe scientists, paranormal researchers, and park rangers who've seen things they can't explain. On December 28, 2024, exactly 1 year after his encounter, Brian uploaded one final piece of footage to his website. A single thermal camera video, 47 seconds long. No audio, just thermal imaging. The video shows Lamar Valley at dawn, the same location where Brian filmed the 12 figures. But this time, the entire valley is filled with heat signatures. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe, human-shaped, moving through the steam like a vast silent crowd, all facing the same direction, toward the rising sun. And in the video's final frame, all of them raise their arms simultaneously, pointing upward toward the sky, as if waiting for something, or warning of something. The video's description reads, recorded by automated thermal camera, December 28, 2024, 7:02 a.m. I wasn't there. The camera was on a timer, but they were all of them, and I think they're gathering. For what? I don't know. But I think we're going to find out soon. The video has been viewed 12 million times, and in the comments, dozens of users claim they've seen the same phenomenon at other geothermal locations: Iceland, New Zealand, Japan, Indonesia. Anywhere the Earth's heat meets the surface, they're there, watching, waiting. The steam-made flesh, wind howling, steam hissing, and that low, deep rumble from underground grows louder. A voice, no, many voices, overlapping, inhuman, speaking in unison. We are the heat. We are the pressure. We are the volcano's dream, and we are waking. Soon, silence, then a geyser erupts, the ground trembles, and something vast stirs in the deep. The New Year's Eve van lifer, December 31st, 2023. Sound of wind buffeting a vehicle. The hum of a diesel heater running. A woman's voice speaking to a camera. Hey guys. So it's New Year's Eve and I'm spending it in the most incredible place. Yellowstone National Park. Let me show you the setup. Cheerful music playing from a phone speaker. The clink of a coffee mug. December 31st, 2023. 4:47 p.m. Mammoth Hot Springs area, Yellowstone National Park. Alexis Lexi Martinez, AGA 29, was a full-time van lifer with a thriving social media presence. At VanLife Alexi on Instagram, 342K followers. YouTube, 89 subscribers. And TikTok, 1.2 followers. She'd been living in her custom-converted Mercedes Sprinter van for 3 years, traveling across North America, documenting her adventures, and earning income through sponsorships, affiliate links, and Patreon supporters. Her content focused on solo female van life, outdoor adventures, budget travel tips, and the freedom lifestyle. Her audience loved her authenticity, her positivity, and her willingness to camp in extreme locations. For New Year's Eve 2023, Lexi had planned something special, spending midnight in Yellowstone National Park, documenting the experience for her followers, and ringing in 2024, surrounded by geothermal wonders and winter wilderness. Her van was parked legally in the Mammoth Hot Springs area, one of the few sections of Yellowstone accessible year-round. The temperature was -14 Fahrenheit, with clear skies forecasted for midnight. Perfect for potential aurora borealis viewing and fireworks from the distant town of Gardner. Lexi's van setup was impressive. Insulated walls and ceiling, R13 insulation value. Diesel heater, capable of maintaining 65 Fahrenheit interior in extreme cold. 400-watt solar panel system with lithium battery bank. Full kitchen, bed, and workstation. Cell phone signal booster. Multiple cameras for content creation. She'd stocked up on supplies, food, water, propane, emergency gear. She was prepared for a solo New Year's celebration in one of the most extreme environments in the continental United States. At 4:47 p.m., as twilight descended over Mammoth Hot Springs, Lexi began her first Instagram story of the evening. Recording begins. Lexi's smiling face fills the frame, bundled in winter gear inside her cozy van. Hey Van Fam, it's officially New Year's Eve and I'm here in Yellowstone. How insane is that? Temperature outside is negative 14 degrees, but inside my van it's a toasty 67. I've got hot cocoa, a good book, and I'm planning to do a midnight live stream from one of the thermal areas. Gonna be epic! Stay tuned and Happy New Year! The video ended with Lexi blowing a kiss at the camera. It would be the last cheerful video she ever posted. 6:34 p.m. Evening routine. Lexi spent the early evening editing footage, responding to comments, and preparing for her midnight live stream. She'd scouted several locations near Mammoth Hot Springs, thermal features that were safely accessible via boardwalks even at night, and had chosen Liberty Cap, a dormant hot spring cone, as her backdrop. At 6:34 p.m., she posted another Instagram story. Okay, here's the plan. At 11:45 p.m., I'm heading out to Liberty Cap. It's like a 5-minute walk from my van to do a live countdown to midnight. I'll have my thermal camera with me to show you guys some insane heat signatures from the hot springs. It's gonna be freezing, but so worth it. See you at 11:45. Her followers responded enthusiastically. Stay safe, girl. This is so cool. Can't wait for the live stream. Be careful out there. Lexi heated up a pre-made meal, vegetarian chili, ate dinner while watching the sunset through her van's skylight, and settled in to read until midnight. Everything was perfect. At 8:47 p.m., she heard the first knock. Sound of 3 distinct knocks on the van's side door. Deliberate, rhythmic. Lexi's voice, slightly startled. Hello? Who's there? Lexi muted her audiobook and listened. Silence. She assumed it was another camper or a park ranger doing a wellness check. Rangers occasionally knock on vehicles in winter to ensure occupants aren't experiencing carbon monoxide issues or hypothermia. She opened her van's side door. No one was there. The parking area was empty except for 2 other vehicles. An RV parked 50 yards away. Dark, no lights, occupants presumably asleep, and a park service truck, also dark. The temperature hit her like a physical blow. Negative 16 Fahrenheit. The air was so cold, it burned her lungs. Hello? She called out. No response. Just wind whistling through the thermal terraces. Lexi closed the door, locked it, and returned to her audiobook. Probably just ice falling off the roof. Or thermal expansion cracking. Old van, weird noises. Nothing to worry about. At 9:23 p.m. the knocking came again. 3 knocks. Same rhythm. Same location. Her van's side door. This time, Lexi grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and threw open the door immediately. Still no one there. But now she noticed something. Footprints in the snow, leading from the thermal terraces toward her van, stopping at her door, and then leading back toward the terraces. Small footprints, child-sized. Lexi's breath caught. She aimed her phone's flashlight at the prints, following their trail. They led directly to the edge of the Mammoth Hot Springs terraces, where boardwalks ended and thermal features began. And then the prints stopped, at the edge of a steaming pool, as if whoever made them had walked directly into the boiling water. Lexi's rational mind tried to explain it. Kids playing earlier. Snow drifts creating false impressions. My imagination. The cold affecting my judgment. But her gut told her something else. Get out. Leave. Now. She returned to her van, locked the door, and decided to skip the midnight live stream. She'd just stay inside, stay safe, ring in the new year privately, and leave first thing in the morning. 10:47 p.m., her van's windows started fogging from the inside. Not normal condensation. This was different. Thick, tight, opaque, got dark. And wrong. Because the fog was warm. Lexi touched the window. The glass was hot. Too hot. Like someone was pressing a heat source against the exterior. But nothing was out there. She checked. Just darkness and steam from distant thermal features. The fog spread across all windows simultaneously. Within 30 seconds, every window in her van was completely obscured. Lexi was trapped in a small metal box, blind to the outside world, the temperature inside rising despite her heater being set to 65 Fahrenheit. Her thermometer read 78 Fahrenheit, 84 Fahrenheit, 91 Fahrenheit. What the hell? Lexi turned off her heater. The temperature continued rising. 97 Fahrenheit, 103 Fahrenheit, 109 Fahrenheit. She was sweating. Her van was becoming an oven. Lexi threw open her side door, desperate for cold air, and saw them. 11:12 p.m. Standing in a semicircle around her van, approximately 10 feet away, backlit by the glow of thermal features. 7 figures, human-shaped, child-sized, wearing clothes from different eras. Pioneer dresses, 1920-style coats, 1970s jackets, modern outdoor gear. All of them steaming, vapor rising from their bodies as if they were hot, and all of them staring at Lexi with eyes that glowed faintly orange in the darkness. Lexi screamed. She slammed the door, locked it, grabbed her phone and tried to call 911. No signal. She tried her emergency satellite communicator. Error. Device offline. She tried her cell signal booster. Nothing. Every communication device in her van was dead. And outside, the 7 figures moved closer. Lexi could see them through the fogged windows now. Vague shapes pressing against the glass, their heat creating clear spots in the condensation, revealing faces that weren't quite human. Burned, melted eyes, too large, mouths open too wide. And they were whispering. Not in English, not in any language Lexi recognized. But she understood anyway. The meaning bypassed language, transmitted directly into her mind. Come out. Join us. So warm. Forever. Lexi did the only thing she could think of. She started recording. If she was going to die, if something was going to happen, she needed to document it. Evidence. Proof. She held her phone up, camera facing the fogged windows, and whispered, "This is Lexi Martinez. December 31st, 2023. 11:14 p.m. Mammoth Hot Springs. Yellowstone. I'm trapped in my van. There are things outside. I don't know what they are. If anyone finds this, I'm sorry I came here. I should have left." The figures began moving around the van, circling it. 7 pairs of hands pressing against windows, doors, the roof. Everywhere they touched, the metal grew hot. Lexi's van was 160 square feet. She had nowhere to hide. The temperature inside had reached 114 Fahrenheit. She was dizzy, dehydrated, panicking. And then they spoke. Not whispers, not the mental transmission, but actual voices. 7 children, speaking in unison. Midnight, midnight, midnight. Lexi checked her phone. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until midnight. Until New Year's. Until 2024. What happened at midnight? 11:47 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. For 12 agonizing minutes, Lexi sat in her overheating van, recording everything, while 7 steam children circled her vehicle, chanting midnight over and over. She tried the engine. Dead. Battery fully charged, but the starter wouldn't engage. She tried forcing the windows open manually. They wouldn't budge. She was trapped. At 11:56 p.m., the chanting stopped. The figures stopped moving. All 7 stood perfectly still, facing Lexi's van, waiting. Lexi's camera captured their heat signatures through the fogged glass, 7 bright orange shapes, radiating 180 to 190 Fahrenheit heat, impossibly hot for living things. At 11:58 p.m., Lexi heard sounds in the distance. Fireworks. From Gardner, Montana, just north of the park. People celebrating, counting down. Normal people, having a normal New Year's Eve, while Lexi was trapped with whatever these things were. At 11:59 p.m., the figures raised their arms in unison, pointing at the sky, and Lexi heard it, deep underground, beneath her van, beneath Mammoth Hot Springs, beneath all of Yellowstone. A rumble, like the earth was groaning, like something massive was shifting, waking, and Lexi understood. These children, these burned, transformed things, weren't here to hurt her. They were here to witness, to show her, to let her see what happened at midnight on New Year's Eve in Yellowstone. Midnight, New Year 2024. At exactly 12 a.m., January 1st, 2024, the seven figures lowered their arms. The fog on Lexi's windows cleared instantly. The temperature inside her van dropped to 67 Fahrenheit in seconds, and Lexi saw something impossible. Every thermal feature at Mammoth Hot Springs, the terraces, pools, fumaroles, steam vents, erupted simultaneously. Not water, not steam, but light. Columns of brilliant orange-white light shooting skyward, hundreds of feet tall, illuminating the entire area like daylight. And within the light, figures, hundreds of them, thousands, rising from the thermal features like smoke, their forms becoming solid, becoming visible, becoming real. All ages, all eras, all the people who'd ever died in Yellowstone's thermal features, transformed, preserved, existing in the heat. They rose into the sky, forming a massive spiral above Mammoth Hot Springs, their voices joining in a sound that wasn't singing or screaming, but something between, a harmonious resonance that made Lexi's chest vibrate. And then, just as quickly as it began, it stopped. The light vanished. The figures disappeared. The thermal features returned to normal, and the seven children around Lexi's van were gone. The only evidence that existed, handprints. 7 sets of small handprints burned into the paint of her van, glowing faintly orange for several seconds before fading to black char marks. Permanent, scarred into the metal. Lexi sat in shocked silence for 10 minutes before she could move. When she finally checked her phone, she found 47 missed calls, all from her mother, growing increasingly frantic. 200 messages, friends worried about her lack of midnight live stream. Her battery at 3%. It had been at 87% at 11:30 p.m., and her video recording had stopped at exactly midnight. The file corrupted. The last 13 minutes, 11:47 p.m. to midnight, the period showing the figures, the chanting, the eruption of light, were unrecoverable. All she had was her testimony and the handprints. January 1st, 2024. Investigation and departure. At 6:34 a.m., Lexi drove directly to the Mammoth Hot Springs Ranger Station and reported what happened. The ranger on duty, a young man named Chen, 24, recently hired, listened politely, took notes, and explained. Ma'am, Yellowstone's thermal features can create unusual atmospheric effects, especially in extreme cold. Fog mirages, temperature inversions, all of these can create illusions. Combined with isolation, darkness, and the stress of solo winter camping, it's not uncommon for visitors to experience unusual perceptions. I'm glad you're safe. I recommend returning home and getting some rest. Lexi tried to show him the handprints on her van. He looked, frowned, took photos for the incident report, and said, those appeared to be heat damage to the van's paint, possibly from parking too close to a thermal feature and superheated steam coming into contact with the metal. You're lucky it didn't cause more serious damage. In the future, maintain at least 50 feet of distance from any thermal feature. Lexi left Yellowstone that morning. She drove straight home to Austin, Texas, 17 miles, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks, afraid to spend another night in the van. On January 3, 2024, Lexi posted a 22-minute YouTube video titled, "I Need to Tell You What Really Happened in Yellowstone." The video showed her earlier cheerful Instagram stories, footage of the child-sized footprints in the snow, recorded before her phone died. The burned handprints on her van, permanent, visible in daylight, and Lexi, visibly shaken, describing her experience in detail. The video went viral, 4.7 million views in 48 hours. Comments ranged from supportive, "I believe you," to skeptical. Thermal hallucinations from co-poisoning, to terrified, "This is why I'll never go to Yellowstone." But dozens of commenters shared similar experiences. A family who'd camped at Norris Geyser Basin and saw steam children dancing around their RV at 3 a.m. A solo hiker who heard children singing near Grand Prismatic Spring. No children were present. A park ranger, anonymous, who confirmed, "We see them all the time. Park Service tells us not to talk about it. They're real, and they're harmless, but they're always watching, always waiting." Lexi Martinez continued van life, but permanently added Yellowstone to her never visit again list. In March 2024, she sold her Mercedes Sprinter van and purchased a new vehicle, unable to sleep in the old van because of the handprints. Even after professional paint correction and repainting, the handprints remained faintly visible, like shadows burned into the metal at a molecular level. The van's new owner, who purchased it knowing its history, reported that on cold nights, the handprints glow faintly orange, like they're still hot. In a December 24 Instagram post, reflecting on the one-year anniversary, Lexi wrote, "A year ago tonight, I experienced something in Yellowstone that changed my perspective on reality. I've been asked 1,000 times, do you regret going? Honestly, yes. Because once you see what's really there, once you understand that Yellowstone isn't just a park but a living, conscious, ancient force, you can't unsee it. Every hot spring, every geyser, every plume of steam. You wonder who's in there, who died here, who's trapped in the heat." I used to think van life meant freedom. Now I know. Some places don't let you leave, even when you drive away, even when you're 1,700 miles distant. Part of me is still there, in the steam, in the heat, watching with glowing orange eyes as midnight comes again. The midnight phenomenon. Following Lexi's video, researchers and paranormal investigators began investigating the Yellowstone midnight phenomenon, the apparent synchronized activity of thermal features at exactly midnight on New Year's Eve. Park Service denied any unusual activity, but amateur investigators found evidence. Seismic data. USG's monitoring stations recorded unusual seismic patterns at Yellowstone from 11:55 p.m. on December 31st, 2023 to 12:05 a.m. on January 1st, 2024. The patterns didn't match earthquakes or volcanic activity. Instead, they resembled rhythmic pulses, like a heartbeat. Thermal satellite imaging. Civilian satellite data showed Yellowstone's surface temperature spiked by 15 to 20 Fahrenheit across thermal basins at exactly midnight, remaining elevated for 7 minutes before returning to normal. Social media reports. Dozens of visitors posted about strange lights and weird sounds at Yellowstone around midnight on New Year's. Most were dismissed as fireworks reflections or celebration noises from nearby towns. But when aggregated and analyzed, the reports showed consistency. Pillars of light rising from thermal features. Humanoid figures visible in steam. A deep rumbling sound felt rather than heard. All occurring at midnight. Dr. Reeves, the controversial geologist, added Lexi's experience to his growing database of Yellowstone anomalies. The midnight phenomenon observed by Martinez and others suggests Yellowstone's geothermal consciousness operates on temporal cycles. Midnight, the transition between years, may represent a significant temporal marker for whatever intelligence exists beneath the caldera. Martinez describes figures rising from thermal features and forming a spiral. This matches historical accounts from indigenous peoples who considered Yellowstone sacred and believed spirits lived in the hot springs. But I don't believe these are spirits of the dead in a traditional sense. I believe they're imprints, heat signatures, consciousness preserved in thermal energy. And I believe that on specific temporal markers, midnight, solstices, equinoxes, the geothermal system releases them briefly, allowing them to manifest. Martinez was lucky. She witnessed, but wasn't taken. The 7 children who surrounded her van were showing her something, a warning or invitation, I'm not sure which, but the handprints they left are fascinating. Laboratory analysis, conducted secretly by a colleague, shows the metal's molecular structure was permanently altered by extreme heat applied for less than 1 second. The heat required, approximately 1800 to 2000 Fahrenheit. The temperature of magma. How 7 children, dead for decades or centuries, could generate that kind of heat remains unexplained. Lexi's van, now owned by a paranormal enthusiast in Oregon, has become an object of study. The 7 handprints remain visible, and they exhibit strange properties. They glow faintly in darkness, visible to night vision cameras. They emit measurable heat, 2 to 5 Fahrenheit warmer than surrounding metal. They respond to temperature. In cold weather, below 32 Fahrenheit. They glow brighter in hot weather. Above 80 Fahrenheit, they fade almost completely. And most disturbing, the handprints sometimes move. Multiple witnesses have reported seeing the handprints shift position slightly on the van's exterior. Not dramatically, just subtle movements, as if the children who left them are still there, still touching, still trying to communicate. One witness described it as, like someone behind a fogged window moving their hands slowly, leaving trails. The van's current owner refuses to remove or paint over the handprints. They're a message, he says, a warning, proof that something exists in Yellowstone that science can't explain. And I think they want us to know. They want us to see. Before it's too late. In her final post about the incident, December 31st, 2024, exactly 1 year later, Lexi shared a haunting message. Happy New Year, Van Fam. I'm not in Yellowstone. I'll never be there on New Year's again. But to anyone who is there tonight, please, stay inside at midnight. Don't watch the thermal features. Don't go near the steam. And if you see children, especially if they're glowing, if they're too hot, if they're asking you to join them, run. Because I think they're lonely. I think they've been alone in the heat for so long that they're desperate for company. And I think they're getting stronger. The handprints on my old van, they're brighter this year than last year. Hotter. More visible. Something is growing beneath Yellowstone. Something is waking up. And the children are its heralds. Its messengers. Its first manifestation. Please, be safe. And if you see something, believe it. Even if it seems impossible. Especially if it seems impossible. Because in Yellowstone, the impossible is real. And it's waiting for midnight. The Supervolcano researcher. December 27th, 2021. Sound of scientific equipment humming. Computer keyboards clicking. A seismograph needle scratching on paper. A man's voice speaking into a recorder. Seismic reading, 47 delta, 834 hours. Activity shows wait. That's not possible. Run that again. December 27th, 2021. 8:34 a.m. Yellowstone Volcano Observatory Field Station, Montana Dirtide. Dr. James Richardson, age 52, was a senior volcanologist with the United States Geological Survey, USGS, specializing in supervolcano monitoring and eruption prediction. He'd worked at Yellowstone for 23 years, monitoring the caldera's seismic activity, ground deformation, gas emissions, and thermal patterns. His job was simple in theory, terrifying in implications. Detect early warning signs of a volcanic eruption that could end civilization. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, YVO, operates a sophisticated monitoring network. 50-plus seismograph stations detecting earthquakes, GPS sensors measuring ground uplift subsidence, tracking the magma chamber's movement, thermal monitoring satellite, gas emission sensors, measuring carbon dioxide, hydrogen, sulfate, and other volcanic gases, continuous data analysis by teams of scientists. In December 2021, Dr. Richardson was conducting routine analysis of seismic data from the previous week when he noticed something unusual. An anomaly. Small, barely detectable, but wrong. Very wrong. Yellowstone experiences 30,000 small earthquakes per year, most under magnitude 2, imperceptible to humans, detectable only by sensitive seismographs. This is normal. The earthquakes are caused by magma movement, hydrothermal activity, and tectonic stress. Scientists have cataloged Yellowstone's seismic patterns for decades. They know what normal looks like. What Dr. Richardson was seeing was not normal. Starting on December 20, 2021, seismographs had recorded a series of small tremors, magnitude 0.81.2, occurring in a strange pattern. Every 47 minutes, exactly. Duration, 3 minutes and 14 seconds exactly. Frequency, 7.83 Hertz. Extremely low frequency, barely audible to human. Location, deep, very deep, 30 to 40 miles below the surface, originating from the magma chamber itself. And most disturbing, the pattern was rhythmic. Consistent, like a heartbeat. Dr. Richardson ran the data through every analysis tool available. He checked for equipment malfunction, seismic interference, natural resonance phenomena. Everything checked out. The readings were real. Yellowstone's magma chamber was producing rhythmic, precisely timed seismic pulses, which was impossible. Magma doesn't pulse. It flows. It rises, it creates pressure, but it doesn't generate perfectly regular seismic rhythms. Unless Dr. Richardson, despite 23 years of scientific training, despite his doctorate in geology, despite his rational, skeptical mind, started to wonder if the magma chamber was alive. December 27th, 2021, 9:47 a.m. Dr. Richardson contacted his colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the earlier characters, a geophysicist specializing in deep earth processes. He shared the seismic data without interpretation, wanting an unbiased analysis. Dr. Chen's response, after 20 minutes of review, Jim, this looks like biological rhythms. Heart rate, breathing patterns, this is how living organisms create rhythm. But that's impossible. This is coming from 40 miles underground in molten rock. What the hell am I looking at? I was hoping you'd tell me, Richardson replied. They spent the next 3 hours analyzing the data from every angle. Geological explanation. Magma convection creating harmonic resonance. Unlikely. Convection is chaotic, not rhythmic. Hydrothermal explanation. Underground steam pockets creating acoustic resonance. Impossible at this depth and temperature. Tectonic explanation. Fault stress releasing at regular intervals. Never documented with this level of precision. Every natural explanation failed, which left something else. What if, Dr. Chen said slowly, the magma chamber has achieved some form of self-organization, like emergent complexity, the way neurons firing randomly can create consciousness. Dr. Richardson stared at her. You're suggesting Yellowstone's supervolcano is conscious? I'm saying the data suggests organization, rhythm, and pattern consistency that defies natural geological processes. Whether that constitutes consciousness. She trailed off. We need more data. December 27th, 29th, 2021. Deep monitoring. Dr. Richardson deployed additional deep monitoring equipment, focusing on the exact location where the rhythmic pulses originated. The location, beneath Yellowstone Lake. In the lake's northern section, where the magma chamber comes closest to the surface, approximately 3 to 5 miles deep, compared to 5 to 10 miles elsewhere. Yellowstone Lake is unique among the world's lakes. Located directly above an active supervolcano, contains hydrothermal vents on its floor, underwater hot springs, sits at 7,733 feet elevation, freezes completely in winter, creating an ice cap 2 to 3 feet thick, has recorded water temperatures of 252 Fahrenheit near hydrothermal vents. At that elevation and pressure, water boils at 198 Fahrenheit. Something beneath the lake was producing those seismic pulses. Dr. Richardson needed to know what. On December 29th, despite extreme winter conditions, Richardson organized a small research expedition. Himself, Dr. Chen, and 2 field technicians, Mark Sullivan and Jennifer Kwan. Their objective: deploy deep seismic sensors through the ice on Yellowstone Lake to directly measure whatever was creating the pulses. It required special permission from park authorities. Deploying equipment in Yellowstone Lake in winter is extremely dangerous. But Richardson's 23-year tenure and impeccable reputation secured approval. They transported equipment across the frozen lake via snowmobile, drilled through 3 feet of ice, and deployed 3 deep water hydrophones. Underwater microphones sensitive enough to detect whale songs thousands of miles away. If something was making sound at depth, they would hear it. 3:47 p.m. First contact. At 3:47 p.m., exactly 47 minutes after deployment, matching the pulse rhythm, the hydrophones detected something. Not seismic vibration, not underwater current, not thermal convection. Sound. Low frequency. 7.83 hertz, matching the seismic frequency, but with harmonic overtones that created complexity, pattern, almost music. Dr. Richardson, monitoring the data in a heated shelter on the ice, stared at the spectrogram. Visual representation of sound. That's not geology, he whispered. That's communication. Dr. Chen leaned over his shoulder, watching the patterns evolve on the screen. The sound continued for 3 minutes and 14 seconds, matching the seismic pulse duration, and then stopped. Silence. The team looked at each other. Stunned. Play it back, Richardson said. Let's hear it. They connected speakers to the recording equipment and played the audio. Shifted up in frequency so human ears could perceive it. The original 7.83 hertz is below normal human hearing rate. What they heard made everyone in the shelter go silent. A deep, resonant thrumming, like a massive bell struck underwater, reverberating, harmonizing with itself, creating layers of sound that rose and fell in patterns that seemed purposeful. And beneath the thrumming, barely audible, voices, thousands of voices, overlapping, speaking, singing, crying out in languages that couldn't be identified. And underneath all of it, a rumble, ancient, massive, aware. The recording ended. No one spoke for 30 seconds. Finally, Mark Sullivan, the younger field technician, age 27, whispered, "What the hell was that?" Dr. Richardson didn't answer, because he didn't have an answer. December 29th, 2021, 5:23 p.m. At 5:23 p.m., exactly 94 minutes after the first pulse, 47 minutes times 2, the hydrophones detected the sound again. But this time it was different. Louder, closer, as if whatever was making the sound had moved toward their sensors. And this time, buried in the low-frequency thrumming, there was pattern, structure. Dr. Chen, who had a background in information theory, ran the audio through analysis software designed to detect patterns in noise. The software flagged something: repeating sequences, mathematical ratios, prime numbers. Holy shit, Chen breathed. This is a signal, an actual, structured signal. Something is trying to communicate. From 40 miles underground, Richardson said. From the magma chamber. Chen, nothing lives at those temperatures. Nothing. It's 1500 to 2000 degrees down there. Then what's making this sound? They didn't have an answer, but they decided to respond. Richardson, acting on instinct rather than scientific protocol, connected a speaker to the hydrophone system and played a simple audio pattern back into the lake. 3 tones, ascending. The universal signal for we are here, we are listening. They waited. For 47 minutes, nothing happened. And then, at exactly 47 minutes after Richardson's response, the hydrophones exploded with sound. Not low-frequency thrumming, not gentle patterns, but a roar. Deafening, overwhelming. Every speaker in the shelter overloading, distorting, screaming. And through the noise, a voice. Not human, not animal, but something vast, ancient, speaking with the power of a volcano, the heat of magma, the pressure of the earth itself. Here, you. The shelter's lights flickered. Equipment sparked. Jennifer Kwan screamed. The ice beneath them cracked with a sound like a gunshot. Dr. Richardson killed the power, silencing the speakers. Everyone was breathing heavily, staring at each other in shock. We need to leave, Jennifer said, her voice shaking. Right now. We need to leave right now. No one argued. They packed equipment in under 5 minutes, loaded it onto snowmobiles, and fled across the frozen lake back to shore. As they rode, Dr. Richardson looked back once and saw something impossible. The ice where they deployed the sensors was glowing, orange, like fire beneath the surface, and cracks were spreading outward in perfect concentric circles, mathematical, precise, as if something beneath was trying to break through. Investigation and suppression. Dr. Richardson reported the incident to USG's leadership the next morning. He submitted the audio recordings, the spectrograms, the analysis showing structured communication, and his first-hand account. The response was swift and severe. All data classified, all recordings confiscated. The research team sworn to confidentiality under threat of termination and potential federal charges, violating protocols for handling sensitive volcanic monitoring data. The official explanation: equipment malfunction caused by extreme cold, affecting sensors, creating false readings that the team misinterpreted. Dr. Richardson was reassigned to desk work. No more field work. No more direct access to monitoring equipment. Dr. Chen was transferred to a different USG's facility in California. Mark Sullivan and Jennifer Kwan were let go. Technically, contract not renewed. The hydrophones were never retrieved from Yellowstone Lake. The site was marked as equipment failure, location unsafe, do not disturb, and the rhythmic seismic pulses from beneath the lake. The volcano dreams, steam rising, and beneath it all, that rhythmic pulse, growing faster, growing louder, a heartbeat made of molten rock. Yellowstone National Park, 2.2 million acres of deadly beauty, 10,000 thermal features hiding beneath snow and ice, a supervolcano 40,000 years overdue for eruption, and beneath it all consciousness, not human, not animal, but something vast, ancient, born from heat and pressure and unimaginable time, something that has been waiting, watching, growing, and now waking. Tonight, you've heard 5 stories from Yellowstone's winter seasons, 5 encounters during Christmas and New Year, when visitors seeking beauty and wonder found horror instead. Marcus Chen, the backcountry skier who fell into a thermal pool and returned, changed. marked, eventually answering the call to return, to descend, to join whatever existed in the heat. His body never recovered, but witnesses claimed to see him in the steam. Still there, still burning, forever. Sophie Patterson, age 7, who vanished on Christmas Eve after walking into steam that called to her in dreams. Her parents divorced, her sister traumatized, and somewhere beneath Yellowstone's thermal features, Sophie plays with other children who answered the same call. Never aging, never leaving, preserved in heat. Brian Holloway, the wildlife photographer, whose thermal camera captured what our eyes cannot see. Human-shaped heat signatures, hundreds of them, thousands, existing in the geothermal network. Watching, waiting, appearing on Christmas mornings like an army mustering for battle. Lexi Martinez, the van lifer who spent New Year's Eve surrounded by 7 steam children who marked her vehicle with impossible handprints. Handprints that still glow, still burn, still prove that something beneath Yellowstone reached out and touched our world. And Dr. James Richardson, the scientist who heard the supervolcano speak, who proved Yellowstone has consciousness, who died from heat burning him from inside, and who in his final words described where he was going, into the fire, to join the others, to wait for the eruption. 5 stories, 5 warnings, 5 pieces of evidence pointing to the same terrifying conclusion. Yellowstone is alive, and it's preparing for something. The signs are everywhere. The seismic pulses, accelerating from every 47 minutes to every 29 minutes in just 3 years. What happens when they become continuous? What happens when the heartbeat no longer pauses? The thermal anomalies, heat signatures appearing in patterns that defy geology, human-shaped, intelligent, organized. The disappearances. 52 people vanished without trace since 1872. Where did they go? Are they still there? Are they waiting? The voices, heard by hundreds of witnesses over 150 years. Children singing, adults calling for help, multitudes speaking in languages lost to time, and the dreams. So many people report dreams before visiting Yellowstone. Dreams of heat, of descending, of joining something vast and warm and eternal, like the supervolcano is calling, inviting, preparing. Sound of geysers erupting simultaneously, steam rising, the ground trembling. Scientists estimate that when Yellowstone erupts, it will eject 240 cubic miles of material, bury everything within 100 miles under 10 feet of ash, cover 2/3 of the United States in ashfall, drop global temperatures by 10-20 degrees, trigger mass extinction. But what if it's worse than that? What if everyone who's ever disappeared into Yellowstone's thermal features is still there, preserved, transformed, waiting to erupt? What if the supervolcano isn't just rock and magma, but consciousness and memory and the accumulated heat of 2.1 million years? What if the eruption isn't just geological but spiritual? An apocalypse of fire and awareness, releasing not just ash, but something else, ancient, powerful, and utterly alien to human understanding. Dr. Richardson believed it. He spent his final months warning anyone who would listen. Most dismissed him as a dying man losing his rationality. But those who've seen what exists in Yellowstone's steam, they know he was right. Wind intensifies. The heartbeat pulse grows louder. Voices begin whispering. Hundreds of voices, thousands, overlapping. We're waiting. Come join us. It's warm here. The volcano dreams. And soon, it wakes. If you visit Yellowstone, and millions do every year, drawn by its beauty despite the warnings, remember, stay on boardwalks. Don't approach thermal features. Don't let your children wander. If you hear voices in the steam, ignore them. If you dream of descending into heat, don't return to the park. And if you visit during Christmas or New Year's, be very, very careful. because those are the times when Yellowstone is most active, when the boundary between our world and the world beneath is thinnest, when the supervolcano reaches out, calling, always calling. The heartbeat continues, deep, rhythmic, faster than before. Yellowstone National Park, where the earth breathes, where the dead become heat, where the supervolcano dreams, and where, someday soon, it will wake.